Welcome to the Unlock Your Culture webcast, a monthly discussion about preserving traditional fire service culture in the modern setting. With your hosts, Sean Duffy, Pablo Jenner, John Hayowick, and Mark Alone. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome, everybody, to episode 13 of the Unlock Your Culture webcast. Mark Alone here with my esteemed colleagues, John Hayowick and Sean Duffy. And we have our very special friend of the program guest, Nick Peppard, or as some will refer to him, Nick Peppard when he's feeling fancy. So welcome, Nick.
Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Absolutely,
Anytime.
brother.
It's good to have you on the show.
So, as many podcasts as I've heard from you in the past month, Nick, I'm going to save everybody the 60-minute intro of the 5-page resume you got, and I'm going to try to summarize it quick.
Oh, no, wait. He sent that to you, the 5 pages?
No, I've heard it on other podcasts. I'm just guessing.
Okay.
Well, I broke it down by every minute on the podcast was a page, so I'm just going to summarize it. If I skip any keynotes, you just add them in there, right? So,
Okay.
Nick's a fireman. He's currently in the Panhandle of Florida. He's not from there originally. He's worked for a few departments, big and small. He's got a tiny bit of experience under his belt these days. He's company officer now. He teaches a few places, and he runs this little conference thing that he might talk about tonight called the North Florida Fire Expo. In addition, he's got 17 degrees from 8 universities. We tracking here?
Yeah, that's a pretty good synopsis, man. That's awesome.
Are you going to give his height and weight? Come on, that's pretty detailed.
I don't know what he weighs anymore.
Right,
He did that 75 hard.
Yeah, I'm whittling away.
He enjoys awkward walks down the Columbus nightlife with friends and getting hit on by questionable people.
There are no pictures to document that event, just so everyone knows.
Or videos.
Well, not that have circulated yet.
That's
are
true.
pictures.
All right, so in all seriousness, this is kind of our holiday episode. So we've conned some folks into being here tonight with the promise of a Christmas gift. So we'll get to that later in the episode. I'm going to make you stick around and listen to what we have to say. So hopefully we can recruit you for the next one. So we kind of titled this episode Caring for the Craft, Nick, because as far as I can tell, as long as I've known you, that's what it's all about, right? Giving back to the profession that gives so much to us. So I think all of the hosts actually have a personal Nick story about how we met and how we got hooked up. So I'll tell my brief one. I've known Nick for, about 6 years now, Nick? We met at the Metro Atlanta Firefighters Conference. And here we are. It was a firefighter at first sight, right? And thanks to social media, we've been hooked up ever since. So, Sean, you and Nick, you've met before a time or two, right? Why don't you give us that?
Oh, yeah, just a time or two. So I met Nick. It was like a phone conversation, right? This is the first year he was putting on the expo. And I don't know how it kind of came about, but he heard about the class and we had a 2-hour long phone conversation before it was all said and done. And it just kind of goes from there. And to this day, I don't think we can have less than a 2-hour phone conversation. So, well, yeah, no, it's one of my best friends.
You're leaving.
Yeah. Well, that's true. But Nick's one of my best friends. We bounce a lot of stuff off of each other. He's got a lot of great ideas and, proud to know him. And hopefully he could keep spreading his knowledge and his passion for the job, kind of leaving it better than he found it,
Very good. John?
So I was fortunate enough to meet up with Sean Duffy back in, it's got to be 2-3 years ago down at Orlando Fire Conference. And he was talking about this awesome little conference that's starting up in the Panhandle. I'm like, that's pretty cool. So he put me in contact with Nick, and then very similar to Sean, like when Nick and I started talking, it was like we knew each other forever. So we talked for a couple of hours, and very similar to Sean again. And it just clicked. And last year I had the opportunity and the pleasure to come down and teach at the North Florida Fire Expo. And it was great. It's one of those things where brothers are there doing the things that they love to do and making it work and sharing the knowledge. And it was cool. So I was able to hook up and teach our through the law class down there and just help build props. And, it was just camaraderie, hanging out and doing the things that we do just to make things happen and to share the knowledge and the passion. And that's one of the biggest things, the passion of the fire service is there, and you got to surround yourself with the right people to have that passion. Sometimes it's difficult if you don't have that passion in where you're at, whether it's a volunteer career or combination. You got to get outside your area, your sphere, and find it someplace else. So these conferences, such as the ones that Nick's been running now, going on the third year, is one of those conferences that where you're going to get that passion from brothers and sisters from throughout the United States coming down. Nick, who traveled the furthest last year to your conference?
I think it was Mike and Ann Galliano coming out of
That's right.
north of Seattle there. Yeah, that was, I think, the farthest.
They were spot on with that. And that's great. They're coming back again this year, right?
They are. Yep. So yeah, now we had a pretty good spread, man. We had a few West Coasters this year. We've already got a few West Coast guys coming out that way. So it's pretty cool. Kind of cool to see what started as kind of a local / regional event, picking up students from all over the U.S. So
Very
That's
cool,
awesome.
man. So I want to talk more about the conference kind of towards the end, but I want to throw it to you, Nick. Where'd you get your start as far as being engaged in the fire service? Is there a specific event, a specific crew? I think everybody joins the job caring, right? But then something happens to us, into our career that sends us down that road where it becomes more than just a job. So what's your story, brother?
So for me, starting out, I feel like the first 5 or 6 years were kind of a blur. You kind of get into the fire service, especially if you don't have any like background or people that were in the fire service or anything. So I got in early, got out of fire academy when I was 18, and was able to get a job right out of fire academy, and started out just wanting to, thought I knew what I wanted to do and just try to, figure things out and kind of get comfortable. I get comfortable, but I ended up in Navarre as one of the first career guys in '08, and I was, it was different back then. We were 2 guys on the truck, and it was very spread out, not doing as well as we are now with resources. But I wanted to be a fireman. I kind of got moved up by default, young department. So I went from firefighter to driver to lieutenant pretty early on. I think I was like 5 years in, and I made lieutenant in my career. So, but just really not. I didn't feel like I had enough time in the backseat. You know what I'm saying? I felt like I got, in that position kind of by default, and I really didn't want to, I didn't want to. I felt like I was missing something in my career, so I made some moves, started putting in some apps, and I got picked up by the Tallahassee Fire Department in the state capitol. Slightly bigger job, 16 houses, just shy like 300 guys, I think, but decent firework. But long story short, the culture is a whole nother, different thing. Obviously, I didn't know what I was getting into, but what I did get from it was I got to ride backseat, and I got to spend a few years, going to some fires, kind of picking up some stuff. And it was 2012. It was 2011. I have to go back and look, but 2011, 2012, it was like one of my first shifts. I got to ride the truck, and we dual house engine truck battalion there. And I just remember I got to work a little bit earlier because I was like, hey, I'm getting to be on the truck today. So I was kind of excited. So, which, little did I know, about 15 minutes later, I was going to be working my ever loving ass off. But we caught a fire like right at shift change. And we got reports of there might be someone inside, there might not. And up to this point in my career, I had been pretty comfortable. We drug the mannequins around the burn building, here and there, and done what I thought was adequate training. But we got reports of a victim, and so the engine went in. Fire started, kerosene lantern near the kitchen, enveloped the kitchen, and they had like a half second story. And so they went right, we went left. And in my head, I'm like, just going through the motions, because we had fires before where there's reports of victims, and either A, everybody's out, or B, it's a body recovery. So in my head, I'm like, okay, yeah, we're doing search, but I'm not really, at this point, I'm just kind of just doing what I'm supposed to do, right? Just, left-hand search, we're doing our thing and blah, blah, blah. And I remember we got to the back of this house, a little split level house, and we got to this back room, pretty large family room. And I went left, I felt a couch, and I was like, there's a couch here, so I'm going to search it. And my captain went right. And when he went right, I just remember like a few seconds later, he's yelling, victim, victim. I'm like, what? It took me a second. I'm like pinching myself, like, what? He's like, I have a victim. I was like, oh, oh shit, this just got real. So long story short, in my head, I had practiced all this cool stuff with webbing that I was going to do. And, I was going to be the hero, man, and I was going to make this happen. And so I started to move this guy. This guy's pretty big. He's 6'4", 6'5", like 240, 250. And of course he's slimy, and of course he's not fully clothed, and he's big and bulky. And so I started to go move this guy, and my first plan A was I was going to sit him up, and I was going to put some webbing, make a little makeshift harness, and drag this guy out. Well, visibility is pretty poor. We couldn't see anything at this point. There was no ventilation. Not terrible heat, but I mean, they were still working on getting fire knocked down. So a decent amount of heat. We don't know where, whether it's better to go back the way we came or whether it's go out the back. Well, the captain's like, hey, I'm going to try to find a way. I think we're closer to the back of the house. We're going to try to go out the Charlie side here. It's like, okay, no big deal. So I started trying to move this guy. Well, I sit him up, and of course he's limp and flopping around, and I struggle to get him up, sitting up, and I get him upright, in kind of pressed up against my chest. And I remember trying to grab my webbing with my gloves, and it came untied. And then I was like having a hard time getting it around him. And then I ended up losing it all together. So I was like, well, screw this. I was saying it'll work. So long story short, I end up just kind of trying to manhandle this guy. And I get to this little set of stairs, probably about, 5-6 steps or whatever. And my captain's trying to climb or crawl ahead and try to find a way out. And he's like, I think there's a door on this backside. Well, the room that we going up these stairs, I fell like 3 or 4 times coming up the stairs. I mean, it was awkward as hell. And finally get him up the stairs. And keep in mind, at this point, like my adrenaline had peaked, and now it's coming down. Now I'm like fatigue is setting in because this guy's kicking my ass. I've probably drug him at this point, probably 20, 25 feet across this room because we don't know where we're at. A big family room, and to the stairs, and we come up the stairs, and I know that now we're like it's starting to set in, like, hey, we got to find a way out because my low air alarm is going off, and I'm like, and his low air alarm is going off, and we're calling, and they're sending a crew to the backside of the building to get this guy. And so we end up just basically manhandling this guy, slow progress, but we're dragging him and moving him and repositioning, dragging, moving. We end up getting to probably, I don't know, 6, 8 feet from the door tops. And my low air alarm had stopped going off a while, like probably a solid minute before this. And all of a sudden my mask sucks to my face. And I'm like, well, shit. So out comes the regulator because at this point, I can see the light of the door. They had a crew come around to the Charlie side. I can see the door open, and I'm like yelling, I'm out of air, but we got to get this guy out. We ain't leaving at this point. We're committed. So end up pulling this guy out. We get him to the doorway, and the other crew basically receives him and takes the victim. They end up working the guy. They sent him to IC, flew down to Gainesville, was down there for a few months, ended up making full recovery. Pretty cool story. I mean, got to go to his birthday party the next year, which was kind of cool. But it was very, one of those things. I got out and I hit my knees. I just remember thinking, holy shit, like that just happened. And so my heart rate was so high that I couldn't physically unbuckle my helmet strap and take my mask off because my fingers were just like curled up. And I just remember thinking, man, like that was like really, really, really close to not being a good outcome. But I got done with all that, and everybody's like walking up. So we go back to the truck, and we're sitting on the bumper. I'm drinking some water after I finally collect my crap. And We go back up there, and I'm sitting there, and everybody's walking by and patting us on the back, and good job, you guys, did a great job and all this stuff. And I'll be honest, man, like I beat myself up so bad over that call because I was like, man, I felt like my training let me down. I felt like this was nothing like anything I'd ever done in a burned building with a dummy. And I felt like I just felt like it was a shit show from the start to the finish. And I mean, we got the job done. We didn't quit, but it was not how I envisioned it going in my head. And so I went back and like I really like it ate me up for a few days. Like I was like, man, I want to be better than that. I don't want and so when I tried to have this conversation with my captain, I got told, no, dude, this is just the way the fire service is. Like, there's nothing you could have done any different. And I was like, man, in my head, I was like, no, there's got to be more than this. And so that kind of put me on a quest for knowledge and training and trying to figure out kind of, what I needed to do to get better. And so the following year, I got an invite to go to MAPC. It was my first fire conference I'd been to, like outside of the region. I hadn't really been to any formal training conferences outside the region. I mean, and really when I first came on the job, there weren't that many training conferences or groups out there. I mean, there's FDIC, there's Firehouse Expo, and some of the bigger ones like Fire East down here in Florida and in St. Augustine. But Orlando Fire Conference had just started, but nobody really was talking about it yet outside of that area. And so, it was one of those things that it was kind of a new concept to me, but they're like, some guys from the area were going up. They're like, why don't you come? And I just remember like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. Like, let's, it was, I think I spent a couple $100. I went up there and I remember going up there and taking a search class, and because I was like, I want to be better at this. And I took an engine class, took a search class, a couple lectures, but I just remember going up there and being in awe, like being around so many passionate dudes that felt the same way about wanting to get better. And all the instructors were like down to earth and just like very, helpful. And I just remember thinking like, man, this is what I needed. This is the shot in the arm. Cause like I said, at that point I was comfortable. I really didn't know what I didn't know kind of thing. So that kind of lit a fire. Well, I came back from MAPC and I was very excited about the training that I had received. And it didn't take me long before I realized not everybody felt as excited as I was about the training and the ideas and concepts and whatnot. And so I quickly found myself doing a lot of training by myself. There was guys that would actually start harassing and basically try to beat me down over training. And you just want to go to all these conferences now and do all this stuff, and you think well, all that stuff, everything because you got the you're bringing ideas back and everything. And so I got a little frustrated and discouraged with just the lack of just the apathy and the lack of concern, it seemed like, from guys. You're excited, like I said, I was pumped up. I got that shot in the arm that I needed to get my career back on track. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, is this how the fire service is? I mean, is it, is everybody like this where they just don't, it's just a job, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, am I the only one? Like, so I'm excited and I want to do better. And then, like I said, I go to the conference and then I went to another one, and it was like, okay. So there's other people out here with the same story. Like they're getting that shot in the arm that kind of picked me up, if you will, by going to this training. And so I just kind of committed to myself at that point where like, I was like, hey, I want to be better at what I do. I want to be a good fireman. I want to be, the guy that is, squared away, that knows, not saying I know everything, but I don't want to be the weak link in the chain. I want to be a good fireman. And so I started taking as much training as I could. I started getting as many classes. I went to school, anything and everything I could do to try to make myself better. So it was during that time I was able to get my associate's degree, my first one, and started kind of getting some of the certification classes, started going to training conferences. And training became like a way of life at that point. It started making, like, it was one of those things where like I was hungry. It was like that fire got lit in me that I wanted to be better. And then it was just like I was hungry for more and I couldn't get enough. And to the point where I probably got a little out of balance with my personal life and the fire service. Because I was passionate about it, man. I was ate up and wanted to be the best that I could be. And so that's kind of what sparked that incident. And then the following year going to MAFC and then coming back and then experiencing some of the, it was kind of eye-opening to experience on both sides of the fire service, if you will, both ends of the spectrum, where you have the go-getters, hard chargers, the guys that made me feel motivated to be a fireman, and then coming back and experiencing the guys that want to pour water on that. And so it just kind of like lit a determination, like I said, in my heart, that I was like, you know what, I don't care, whatever anybody else says, I'm going to continue to be around people that make me better, that want to be better. And so that's it, man. I mean, I as far as training goes, that's kind of what got me going down that road. That one incident was kind of the catalyst to kind of tip the scale. And once I got going, it was just like, I just wanted more of it. And so that's kind of what's led to everything else that's happened like since then is, networking, going to training conferences, talking to people, being hungry, learning, and just being involved, trying to do stuff to contribute and make the fire service better. It's been just a small part of, at this point, I'm trying to give back, and, I'm trying to do what I can to contribute. So that's it, man. That's in a nutshell. That's basically, my backstory. That's where like you said, the switch kind of flipped. It was about 6 or 7 years in.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us have similar stories too. I know for me, I spent a lot of time at slow stations. And so it wasn't until I went somewhere that actually ran a few calls now and then where I kind of really, my skill set was more in my mind, right, than it was actually able to show up on the fire ground. So, you brought up a lot of stuff there, dude. It's funny, you answered like 3 of my questions just by talking about it, which is awesome, dude. I love it. I don't want to cut you off in the middle of it. The training disconnect, I think, is a big thing, and a theme that I see where like I just can't wrap my mind around why, we continue to teach these things to recruits and then say, hey, don't worry, we'll teach you how to do it later. And then it never happens.
Then we never do. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't understand why we can't just change the curriculum. And I know I've had shots fired at me for suggesting that in front of people that run training programs and, run operations for departments, that I'm some kind of anti-administrative person. And it's not that.
Right.
I don't know how that makes sense to anybody in their head that like we're literally teaching outdated stuff because the textbook hasn't caught up. But like your experience, right? Everything they taught you to do when you found a victim failed you. And if you did what you know now, you're probably exiting with that victim and he recovered, right? But with a much better chance of recovery and probably half a cylinder of air left to go back in there and do more work, right? But so that kind of struck me. And, another thing, and I'll let these guys kind of jump in with what they got out of your stuff. But, I don't think guys today know how good they have it with the conferences because, you and I were hitting it at about the same time. MAFC at the time was, I think, the only super affordable conference out there where you could get training for like $50-$70 and everything else was a big regional deal. These guys coming on today don't understand how good they have it with, a backyard conference within 60 miles of almost every metro. If you travel 2 hours in any direction from where you live and you don't hit training, you probably live in the desert or like North Dakota or something. And even then, right? Like, so I just think it's important to reinforce to people that, guys like us, like this wasn't always a thing. You had the major 3 conferences, which were, FRI was a big one, FDIC and then Firehouse Expo and kind of Firehouse World. And that was kind of it, and FDIC being the bigger one. And then these little ones, they caught on like wildfire. And I'm not knocking the big conferences. They all have a time and a place, right? But I just, people need to appreciate what they got. So John, what you got?
I'm going to say you guys are absolutely fortunate down in Florida and down the South because you've got the perfect weather no matter what, except for the heat in the summer. In the winter, it's really difficult to get guys together to do a conference. A lot of the Fools organizations are the ones that are sponsoring a lot of these conferences, and there's other ones that are out there. But again, a lot of that training comes back to smaller organizations trying to make a change or part of their mission, as in like the Fools regarding training and brotherhood. But it's up north, it's a little more difficult. You've got a certain set of a time frame for especially outdoor stuff. Indoor stuff you can do it almost anytime you want. But again, with the challenges with the past 2 years for with COVID and everything else, it's sort of downplayed getting things done. And, but again, I love coming down to Florida, coming down to, I was lucky enough to have one of the lieutenants on my job. His brother is a chief down in Florida, involved in the Orlando Fire Conference. And he told me about it, had to be 2010, 2011, and going down there and experiencing the Orlando Fire Conference for a number of years and doing that and meeting like-minded people there. And, there's obviously Florida's blessed with it. I think you guys have Fort Lauderdale that does something, does their conference, and you've got Pensacola where you got Ike, Chief Ike, just down the way. And then you've got your conference, which is awesome, Nick, and it's just growing. You can probably talk to how much it exponentially grew from the first year to the second, and now it's third year, and the numbers. I know we were going to talk about this towards the end, but I'm jealous of the ability of you guys being able to have decent weather for these conferences. Obviously, hurricane season sort of puts a damper on some things, but it's good. I'm looking forward to getting down there in February and March. I'm going to go right from OFC to North Florida, which I think I'm catching a ride with somebody coming out of Central Florida.
Julio.
I got two. I got Julio and I got Jason Liska.
Okay. Yeah.
You got two different rides? How are you going to get two different rides?
All depends. You're going to see what's going on.
John, that's not what ride share means, okay? I think you need to relook at that.
Julio is going to make me ride in the back of the trailer with the saws.
It's a good place.
I know, but he was going to make me repair them as we were going up. I said, you don't want me doing that.
This saw looks funny.
Oh, how did I combine a rotary and a chainsaw together?
Yeah. Who put the smooth bore on the bent saw? Come on. Duff, you got anything, bro?
Yeah, I mean, I know we're kind of preaching to the choir because everybody who's on here is obviously on here for a reason, right? Fired up, trying to improve their craft in whatever way that they can, and pick nuggets from whoever they can, right? So what I could say is, much like Nick, I started in the fire service, man, and I thought, for lack of better words, man, I thought I had shit dialed in, right? I thought I was a badass, like pumping my chest. Yeah, I've been to fires, like I know how to do this thing, and it hits you one time that like you really don't know what you think you do, and that reality check, it's a hard pill to swallow, right? And so people react to that differently. And I think that what we need to do more in the fire service is share these experiences and not be afraid to tell people like, hey, I failed. My training failed me, right? Like all of these things that I put faith in, they just didn't prepare me enough. And, it's weird because like Nick kind of alluded to, when you talk about that in the fire department, you say, hey, our training needs to get better, or, hey, we're not like stretching hose as good as we could, or whatever the issue is. It's almost people get on the defense, like, how dare you bring this to our attention? Everything's just fine. And that's like fantasy, right? And if the citizens knew that that's what was going on and that's what we were willing to accept, they'd be pissed, right? Because we have no hesitation to reach out to them and say, I need more money for gear or a new engine or ladder or whatever it may be, right? So the other part of that equation is that we invest into ourselves and we show up prepared, right? And it just pisses me off that like people are like, well, if my fire department's not going to pay for me to go, I'm not going. Right now, you're just part of that problem. And like you were saying, Mark, now today's fire service, man, training is so affordable. There's stuff that you can go everywhere. And even if nobody in your fire department wants to hear it, or they don't want to go with you, like, don't let that deter you, because I promise you, when some shit's happening and it's going down, somebody needs to know what to do. And gosh, man, like that person has to be you. It has to be, because when you're surrounded by maybe people who hopefully have the same passion you do, but realistically, a lot of people are not. So when you're in that environment and that's what you're surrounded by, the best thing you can do is have a plan going into this thing. And the only way it's going to happen is through training, right? And talking to guys, it's not, people are not making fires every single day, right? I mean, that's just not reality. So the best thing, come to these training events, pick the brains of people who have had those experiences, Um, you know, figure out what you can take from those things and implement that into your career and your daily, practices around the firehouse. And I mean, that's just really it. There's so much training going on around the country now. It's almost like you can get on Facebook and look, and every week there's something somewhere. So, don't shortchange yourself, and keep a positive attitude, because the worst thing that you can do is get aggressive with this and start pointing fingers at people of, well, you're not training, and you're a piece of shit and you suck, or whatever. Just be that positive example, man, and start changing things, for yourself first, and then start changing it in your organization little by little, by just being, that constant driving force behind all that stuff. And that's really what I can give to anybody who's listening to what Nick has said, or me, or you, or John, or anybody, is just, hey man, this is work, and you've got 25 years or more to keep beating that same path. So, make it worth it.
So I just want to jump in on what Sean just said, and be the one that's doing the drilling, because you know what? They're going to get whoever's in the station or at the firehouse at the time. They're going to be like, hey, what are you doing? And like, get involved. Again, it's a leading from the front thing. And again, it's not just a leadership thing. It's just hey, I'm doing this. I'm practicing. I'm trying this. Firemen are curious by nature, and we like to bet, and we like to gamble on things. And you're like, hey, I bet you I can do that quicker than you. And that's how like that competition thing comes up in the fire service, and it leads to a good place majority of the time. But again, getting out there, doing whatever you're doing, whether you're stretching for time, and say, hey, you grab the rookie, because you'll always have somebody that's junior to you, unless you're the really rookie. And you're like, hey, time me. I want to try this stretch. We're going to do this, and around, and do what we got to do. Or, hey, I'm trying to get faster masking up. I'm trying to master masking up with gloves. How about that? That's, something that for me, when I first started, we didn't have hoods. So hoods were added into my PPE. So that had to be there was a change for me to get used to. How am I going to get this? And again, a lot of times I was wearing my hood low and forgetting. So now, it's all about a repetition and the muscle memory. So the big thing was for me getting out there and doing it on my own. And then I was finding the junior guys, and sometimes some of the senior guys were watching. And even while I was a firefighter, some of the younger officers coming out and then getting involved. And that's where, you got that sort of that sphere of influence. You might not be about trying to make the change in your department, just make the change for you. And that small change hopefully will follow into your department with your members. It might be just your company, but then it might go to your house. You might have a 2-station house. And then, the other house, here is what you guys are doing. And they drive over and hang out for a little bit. And now you're stretching lines or whatever else. Again, it's about doing it for you and then expanding it to do it for your company. But again, it's not just for you, it's for the citizens. We're honing our craft. We're making it better. It's about customer service. And I don't want to take away from Nick, but that's what Nick's doing. He's breeding customer service with his conference throughout the Florida, and whoever shows up to his conference. They're breeding better customer service by making better firefighters. And that's, you might not think that you're doing that just by training, but that's exactly what you're doing.
So something that I kind of think of when you guys talk about the training being so prevalent now too. And Nick, I want your thoughts on this. I think we've all can agree that there's probably not a, quote unquote, right way to do things, right? You talk about masking up, John. I could tell you at least 4 or 5 different ways off the top of my head to mask up with gloves on, all which will make you successful. But I think what we're missing now, and Nick, you can probably speak to this from what you've seen, not only with your own conference, but going to so many, there's definitely a wrong way. And we're really scared to say that now. And I just think that is what's detrimental, is that we have people teaching things that quite frankly don't work. And nobody will stand up and say, hey, that is wrong. Like it is absolutely wrong, and not the whole tool for a toolbox, or everything has a time and a place, or you never know, right? Like there's a legit wrong fucking way to do things, and somebody needs to say it.
Oh man, so much to unpack there. Yeah, no, I mean you're absolutely right, man. I think what is probably the hardest thing is sometimes, when you step out on a limb and you do say something, you you have to understand. I mean, by default, anytime you start doing things that are maybe outside the norm or outside the status quo, regardless of the organization, doesn't matter, big department, small department, north, south, east, west, like when you start doing stuff that is maybe not the norm, you are going to put a target on your back to some degree. For people that maybe don't either want to put in the work to go out there and prove themselves or whatever, or they feel like you're trying to whatever, they feel like maybe you're exposing them or whatever. There's multitude of reasons why other people feel the need to take shots at guys that are kind of being willing to just take put their foot forward and kind of say, hey, you know what, I'm going to try to make things better, or I'm going to try to drive changes that I feel like are positive. And so anytime, I will say this, you're right, someone does need to say, hey, this isn't right, or hey, there's a better way. But I think that in doing so, we have to just realize that you're going to have some resistance. Firemen by nature, what's the old saying, there's two things firemen hate: the way things are and change. So that's true in every fire department across the country. And the thing is, like, it is absolutely sometimes an uphill battle in every organization when you challenge the status quo. But the thing is, the only way we get better is to get out of our comfort zones, out of our bubbles, right? And so I think, John, you hit on it a minute ago, is you have to personally step out of your comfort zone yourself, right? And kind of do things that make you uncomfortable, because that's the only way other people are going to do things that are uncomfortable as well. If they see you kind of stepping out, and being uncomfortable and kind of weathering the storm, if you will, and kind of succeeding overall, there's others that are going to be emboldened by that. They're going to see that example, and it may be subtle, right? It may be like, hey, you've been out there for 2 months practicing mask up drills, just kind of use that as an example, right? And you think nobody's watching, and then you come in and the rookie's out there the next tour, practicing by himself, and you just happen to walk on the bay like, oh shit, I didn't know anybody was even gave a shit. And I think that's the hardest thing, man, is like when you go to these conferences and you realize you're around a bunch of like 3% or 10%, whatever percentage you want to assign to those guys. But when you're around a bunch of go-getters, a bunch of hard chargers, guys that want to make the fire service better, it's a shot in the arm. But it's also, I think we got to keep in mind, like, the reality of it is, we get back to our firehouse, it's very easy to get discouraged because of maybe the lack of excitement or sometimes downright resistance to hey guys, maybe we need to challenge our status quo a little bit, push the needle forward a little bit. We've been masking up, let's say our average is 30 seconds, let's push for 15, or let's push for 20. I mean, well, why do we need to do that? Or why do we need to pull hose? We already know how to pull hose. Well, let's be better at it. Let's reduce our times. Let's get better at stretching and masking up. And that's the thing too, is there's one thing I've realized over the last few years, and that is, this is a grind, man. Like, this is absolutely a marathon. This is not a sprint. And at the end of the day, like, you got to do stuff over and over again, even when you don't want to. That's discipline, right? That's discipline to the craft. And I think guys want something new. They want something sexy. They want you to show me something I don't know. But the truth is, 90% of the job is spent just honing and being good at the basics of what we do, and laying a good foundation. And if we don't do that, if we don't lay a good foundation, right, if we don't practice the basics, then we're never going to really truly master anything advanced. Because what is advanced stuff, right? It's just taking foundational basic skills and building off of that, right? So whether it's hose line management, whether it's ladders, whether it's ropes, whatever it is, there's a foundation to all of that, right? There's basic level stuff that you start with, and you build layer after layer until you finally get to more advanced stages. But the fact of the matter is, these guys that, you know, always want something new and something exciting, that's just not life in general. It's not real life. That's not the fire service. We spend 90% of our time doing what we would consider routine stuff, right? You know, we may get maybe a small percentage of the calls where it's like, holy crap, like got something we never seen before, or a call that really challenges us. And so what happens is a lot of guys, like, I almost think guys like get in a rut and they get bored. They just, because they want everything to be new and exciting. They want instant gratification. They want right now, you know, they want you to show me the silver bullet trick that makes me the best masker upper you've ever seen, or the guy that can force the door in half the time as everybody else, or they want gimmicks. They want stuff that's cool and exciting and sexy all the time. But that's not the fire service, man. The fire service is grinding year after year, putting in reps, pulling hose, catching hydrants, throwing ladders, tying knots, you know, going on calls and coming back and saying, hey, let's tweak this. Let's, you know, and that's what builds real long-term results, right? That's what builds success in the long term, is the diligence, shift in, shift out, and the discipline to do it when you don't want to do it. And that's, I think, what's missing in the fire service a lot of times, is guys forget that, you know, this is a craft that requires constant attention in some way, shape, or form. Like, there's no such thing as going to work and just, like, you know, I mean, people do it. They go to work, go through the motion, go home. But I mean, you have to constantly, at least mentally, be engaged in some way, shape, or form. You know, I'm not saying that every shift is like 6-hour training session, but if you don't have in your mind some form of you know, way to kind of keep yourself sharp throughout the shift, right? You know, you run a call, you do a quick drill, you do throughout the tour, right, to kind of keep yourself engaged. I think that, you know, we're setting ourselves up for failure if we think we can just, like, once or twice a month go out and do a couple drills and be good. Like, if we think we can just learn a new trick here and there, you know, and that's going to be good enough. And that's where I think, as a fire service, though, and just as people in general, we got to remember why we got into this, why, you know, what we're doing, who we're doing it for. It's not about, and here's the thing, it's not about us. It's about the citizen. It's about the job. It's about the brotherhood. Like, it's so much bigger than our one little fire department, right? It's so much bigger than that. And at the end of the day, like, you know, we got a job to do. We have objectives we have to meet. And sometimes that means we have to make ourselves uncomfortable to accomplish them. And even if that's, you know, it's not what we want to do for the day. Like, there's plenty of days where I come in, I don't want to train, you know, I'm tired, whatever. But you know what? It's the discipline to get your ass out there and say, hey, we're going to do it anyway. Or the discipline to get in there, read that article, listen to that podcast, engage your mind, you know. And you talking about the training opportunities, dude, there's so many training opportunities out there now. It's not even funny. It is crazy, the amount of training groups. It's encouraging. It's all the training groups and the podcasts and the articles and the conferences and the, you know, the seminars, man. Like, it is literally everywhere. And it's something that didn't exist when I got on the job. And I think most of us could, you know, share the same story. So it's encouraging that you can now get quality training without having to go very far, you know, for the most part. And the thing is, if you want to get better, there's tools out there. There's ways to get better. You just have to seek it out. And the thing is, you don't even have to seek it that hard. Type in Google some stuff, and you can immediately find literally thousands of resources. And so that's what I would say is, you know, we do have it very fortunate in the last 5 or 6 years to have all these training opportunities available to us, but we have to capitalize on it. And we have to get people to realize, like, the opportunity that's afforded to them. They, like, get out of their firehouse, get out of their bubble, network with other guys, talk, you know, fellowship, but train, learn, sweat, put in the work. And you know, that if you're not getting it in your fire department, there are places you can get it for without breaking the bank. And that's what I'm getting at, is guys like, oh, well, we don't do that in my fire department. Well, you know what? Find guys that do it. Find guys that are passionate, that motivate you, and talk to those guys, because I can tell you that, you know, that's what fires me up. When other people are, like, excited about the job and excited about getting better and learning and growing, like, that's what gets me excited.
I want to touch base on what something you were talking about before. And, you know, reentry is rough, you know, coming back from a conference and you're all pumped up, and then you get in and you're like, and you get the naysayers and, you know, overcoming that is very difficult. It pops your bubble, it takes that honeymoon phase and slams the door on it. But some of the things, it's interesting. I was attending FDIC West many years ago. I came back and I had a binder. I was told when I got on, when I started out as a volunteer, they said, keep every certificate, throw it in a binder. So I was at work one day and one of the older guys comes in and sees me because I'm the rookie. So everybody should have been studying upstairs. And I'm putting my certificates in the binder. And he goes, what are those? I'm like, I was just out of training class. And he's like, oh, all right. He's like, you didn't go anywhere from work. I said, no, I went on my own. Oh, okay. So a little bit later on, I switched shifts and, we were talking. I saw him on a overtime shift. He goes, oh yeah, we had a good basement fire. And I look at him like, we haven't had a fire in a little while. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, no, I joined the volunteers up where I live now. And I'm like, oh, so you break my chops because I'm going for training. Now you become a volunteer. All right, no problem. But it was sort of cool because now you're like, because I got raised up, a little bit, and we're on the par level. But one of the things is you are absolutely right. There are a ton of training groups out there. You just got to make sure you vet them. You got to, take a look what they're saying and what they're doing. Because like Mark said before, there are things that are wrong. Or there's better ways to do things like you said, Nick, but you just got to, I think it's the generation that's coming up in the fire service. And I hate to be the us, them, but I think we have to, if we are officers or senior guys, and again, I lean heavy on the senior guys, we got to give the why now. We have to explain it a little bit better. There's a time and place for it, but there's a ton of training. And again, there's online stuff. I just signed up for a class from engine company, Chief Hovelman. I was going to kill his the name on it, but I'm taking his battalions class, his tactics class. I did his administrative class for battalions when I was a captain. And again, sometimes you're gonna have to put out of pocket. The department's not going to pay for everything, and you're going to have to pay for your own health and welfare for the job. Dig in your pocket a little bit. If you guys are catching overtime, you're riding a lot. I told my daughter, she's a police officer up in Connecticut, and she gets decent amount of overtime. I said, put some of that to the side. You're going to want to go to a conference. You're going to want to do this or that or get equipment. Take some of that money and set it aside. And I've told young firefighters this. I said, some of the money that you get, put it off to the side. So you have that for every 3 years, you've got enough to go to a larger conference, which is going to cost a little bit of money. But now you have that set aside. And if you have that dedication, you're going to do well. So it's important with these classes that we have. And again, you just got to find what's out there. Looking like back when I first started, all we had was Firehouse and Fire Engineering, the two trade magazines. And now take a look at all of the websites and podcasts, and there's tons of stuff out there. And again, you just got to vet it and seeing what Nick's doing, and Mark, it was great seeing you guys all the way out in Firehouse, and talking about different things going on. And it's like old home week going to some of these conferences. You look forward to it. You're like, I haven't seen these guys in years. And again, with COVID, it was rough. We didn't get to see each other, but it's nice now that things are starting to come out and open up a little bit better. But again, you develop these friendships, and it's funny. You can stop the conversation 1 year and get back into the same exact conversation where you left off the year later at that conference or the next conference that you go to with the same person. So it is a passion. It is you just gotta push for it. And, you've got to keep that constant pressure, like you're saying, constant pressure on your job to make yourself better, because you're making yourself better for your company. You're making yourself better for your department, and you're making yourself better for the citizens that we respond for.
Yeah, so let's I want to kind of run with the resistance thing real quick, Nick, and kind of when you said it, it made me think about it, right? There's often a better way, and that turns people off because, I've said it forever, right? If you want to change something, that implies something's wrong. But if you want to evolve something, it says you're making it better, right? I believe the things we say to each other are at face value what turn people off to begin with. And it's just like a first impression. With a lot of people, you get one shot, you get one training, you get one topic, and they decide if they're going to write you off or not for your entire career, whatever it may be. It's people are fickle like that. Um, but I think culturally, we kind of set us up for that because when we're in training or we're in a recruit school, even at the state academy, this is how we do it here, right? That we drive that home to people. This is our way. This is our way. So when somebody goes outside the department and comes back with something that could be 110% better for you, it's automatically getting dismissed because from day one we've programmed you to believe that our way is the only way. And that may be true. You may do great things, but even guys who see a lot of work could improve. I watch videos all the time, and I'm not trying to be that person that's dissected YouTube videos, but I watched a video yesterday from a major metropolitan department that goes to 1,000 times more fire than I'll ever see in my career. That had a horrible hose pull. Their hose looked like my 6-year-old loaded it for them, and I'm just like, these guys are the cream of the crop, you know. So, I think that's something to think about, and the discipline thing you brought up. I think that dies out because it's so hard to be the only one. And I'll only speak to myself, right? I've been in a rut lately because it just gets, I think when you feel like you got to force people, it's not fun, right? And that's where the discipline comes in. Everybody's cool with the jam up crew that wants to train everybody, but when it becomes work and a chore and you're always the bad guy, it's kind of like, man, is it worth the frustration? So, I'll kick that to you, and maybe you could touch on kind of the importance of you mentioned the person out in the bay, right, doing it by themselves. As a senior member or company officer, the power of joining in with that and what it does to influence and motivate that person.
Yeah, man, you're absolutely right, man. It comes. I mean, everybody, you take these, leadership classes and all this stuff, and everybody wants to talk about, just go out there and do it, man, and people gravitate to it, and that is true to some degree, right? But I will say this, man, like there is a point where you may find yourself, and nobody ever talks about what do you do when it's like an uphill battle all the time, and or whatever, and
Yeah,
nobody ever wants
or when
to
it
talk about
makes
that.
when it makes a worse divide, right, by being that person, because that's the reality for a lot of people.
Well, right, and I think that what it comes down to, man, is like you got to realize there is a point where you can only push so far, right? There's only you can only kind of encourage so much, but at some point there is some personal responsibility that has to be taken with it, right? There are, and this is something that I think is hard for motivated guys, right? Because when you're motivated and you're right and you hang out with other motivated people and you're excited and stuff, and you come back, like we were talking about that reentry, right? You want other people to be better, but there are some people, that no matter what you do, that their motivations are different. They're not in the job for the same reasons. Maybe they got in the job for the wrong reasons, or maybe they just, haven't found that spark yet. Or they're listening to and this is what I find the most frustrating thing, I think, is you have this group in the middle that kind of ebbs and flows between the two groups, right? I feel like you got a group at the top that are trying to push, for training and education and trying to push the organization forward. And a lot of times those guys, get labeled as rogues, like, Mark Von Uppen's been, you talk to Mark or listen to him talk. I mean, he talks about it all the time, those guys get labeled as rogues, or they're just trying to, shake rock the boat, this, that, and the other. And so you got a group up there that, at great cost in personal health sometimes themselves, right? They kind of put themselves out there and kind of beat the drum and try to push the organization forward. And then you have a group at the bottom, I call them they're just bottom dwellers, man, that just they're looking for an excuse to get out of work. They're looking for a reason to, they just want a paycheck, man. They want all the cool benefits that come with being a fireman, but they really, at the end of the day, man, like they're not there for the right reasons. And then you have this group in the middle, the bigger group, the biggest group in the fire department usually is this group in the middle, right? And there's, like I said, that middle 80% is, or whatever percentage it is in your respective fire department, is getting this tug of war from the guys that are trying to push the organization forward and the guys that want to keep it the way it is, and the guys that want to just kind of sit on the fence. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. They want to sit on the fence. They want to watch, they want to throw rocks at the other guys that are out there working and doing stuff. And it is what it is. And you just got to come to peace with the fact that and it takes a lot. It takes a lot for, because after a while it does, man, it wears you down. You're like, golly, man, it's an uphill battle. But you got to realize really what you're fighting for is a kind of to sway that middle group, if you will, to kind of get that middle group to shift the needle towards passion, towards the brotherhood, towards the real reasons for doing the job, right? And the squeaky wheel gets the grease. 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's frustrating, I think, for the guys that are passionate, that give a shit, that are putting in the work, that are constantly putting themselves out there and doing the work, is what ends up happening is it gets frustrating because it seems like a lot of administrations want to listen to the bottom feeders, the fence sitters that want to throw rocks and whine.
Sometimes they're just the loudest, and
right?
that's what the admins is listening to, because the 10 are happy up top, the 80 ebb and flow,
right?
But again, you now have to also, as you rise up through the ranks, you got to watch out for that 10 on the top, because they're always watching what you're doing for the 80 and what for the bottom 10. And if you don't hold everybody accountable and fair and equitable, you're going to lose some of that 10 from the top, and you may get them to slide into that 80,
right?
Which is a really tough balance.
Well, when that happens, what you end up with is you end up with toxic cultures. You end up with, mediocrity prevailing. You end up with guys that are more interested in using the rules to their benefits to, chief, we can't train because it's downtime, or, this, that, and the other, and there's, what ends up happening is you end up with this culture where that's acceptable, where that and that needle kind of just slides more and more and more. And so I think the danger is, what ends up happening is with so many guys that are, willing to kind of do the work and put in the effort to be better and all that stuff is, those organizations, depending on what side the middle 80 kind of swing towards, it can eventually get to the place where either the guys that are really, really motivated go, hey, you know what, I've done everything I can do, and now I'm going to move on to a better place. Or you end up having turnover from some of your best, people that care the most, or you end up having a situation where those guys just kind of get beat down to the place where they're like, you know what, I'm just going to come in and just do my thing. And I don't think they ever stop caring about the job. They don't ever stop caring about being good at what they do, but they just stop, trying to kind of beat that drum as loud. You know what I'm saying? They kind of take a step back and say, hey, you know what? It is what it is. And the thing is that, I've seen it on both sides. I've seen, the organizations that win are the ones that listen to, that gravitate towards the go-getters, that gravitate towards and try to push the organization forwards. The ones that lose are usually the ones that end up catering to, the guys that want to whine and complain and bitch and moan about every little thing. And it really is. I mean, every fire department, man, there is a cultural tug of war, and which way that needle leans, because it's never hard right or left. Usually it's usually just a leaning, and whatever that organization, tends to kind of set as the position that they lean towards as a whole, that middle group, like I said, is usually the culture of the fire department. So if it's for good or bad, if they lean towards being better and challenging the status quo and they're open to, letting ideas and concepts win instead of personalities and egos, right? When they're willing to listen to and do what's right for the right reasons, then things get better. If it becomes about egos and about personalities, then the organization loses, right? When it starts becoming about, the guys at the bottom of the barrel, because they're the loudest, or they complain the most, or cause the most, whatever. I think that's when the organization shifts in the other direction, and you start having global morale issues, right? So I don't know, man. It's just, I've seen a few different organizations over my career. I mean, I'm not claiming to be the expert or the guru on it, but I do think that when it comes down to culture, when it comes down to motivation, the guys that are beating that drum trying to push forward, they've just got to keep discipline and just keep their head up, stand up tall, and let the mutts bark, let the haters be what they are, because they're always going to be there. Like, let's just be honest. I mean, they're not going away. And, you know, what's that saying? The people that watch you, the most are usually the ones that hate you the most. I mean, something along those lines. That's just the way it is, man. Like that's real life. And, in the end, I think if you just keep grinding, keep moving forward, that eventually people are going to see who's who. People are going to realize eventually now, and I'm not saying you're going to have this huge revival in your organization and everybody's just going to be like, hell yeah, I want to train every day, hardcore, going to fire conference, podcast, all that stuff. But I think that if you can just get them plugged in when they're at work, you're winning. If you can get your guys to come in and be about it when they're at the firehouse, that's winning. Not saying that they're doing stuff on their time off per se, but that's always my goal. It's like, if I can just get guys to like, hey, just be present here. I'm not saying you got to be the most like in the middle of everything guy, but just when there's a job to do, let's do it. Let's do a good job. Let's train, let's get our stuff done, and let's not make the job harder than it needs to be.
So this just hit me, Nick, and I don't know. It's never really hit me until you said it for some reason, but we call it the job constantly, right? We call it the job, but we don't really think about that, I don't think. And trust me, I teach the 10-80-10. It's a real thing. It's a management thing no matter what industry you're in. But I think we often take up for these people inadvertently that don't want to be there, that don't do what they're supposed to do with these kind of justifications, right? Because at the end of the day, and my battalion has told me this numerous times, if you have personnel issues, you're like, hey, so-and-so's, not doing this. Did their paycheck hit? Right? If you're a volunteer, did you get whatever tangible value you wanted out of that organization, right? Are you still allowed to show up? Are you still allowed to wear the shirt, right? Do you still get whatever benefits they have? But at the end of the day, it is a job. And so I don't know why we tolerate people that refuse to do it, right? If you have to go train, you have to go train. Saying we're not going to do it should not be an option. Attacking the person that's trying to get you to go out and train, or trying to get you to do better, or correcting you, or trying to improve you, whatever it may be. I don't understand why we as a fire service accept that, but we do. We really do. And we can say all day long, oh, well, the top, the bottom has the ear of the top, the middle shifts both ways. That shouldn't be a thing, because, Ike put it the best I've ever heard the first time I went to HROC. And his analogy was, if you went to work at McDonald's, how many Big Macs do you make wrong before you get fired? But in the fire service, how many bad stretches do you get? No, you get promoted so you don't have to stretch anymore. And so culturally, that's our bad. We make this shit happen because we justify it without even doing it, because we are a family. And I think it clouds our judgment from those hard conversations. And I'm guilty as anybody else. Things piss me off every day, and I walk around with a pissed off look on my face, and everybody knows it. That my guys tell me all the time, you can't hide your emotions well, Cap. I'm aware, but I can shut my mouth now because I finally grew up. But I shouldn't have to, and that's the point. And we have this paramilitary chain of command and this paramilitary complex about us, but at the end of the day, we don't put battle ready first. We put this illusion of a family that we think we have, and all these, it's supposed to be fun at the firehouse, we're supposed to break bread, we're supposed to chill out together. And the job that we refer to all the time is the last thing on our mind most of the time. So I don't know why, man, but just when you kept saying the job, it just kind of hit me like, it's still a job. You're there to work. You're there to provide a service. You're not there for your freaking luxury.
And to piggyback on that, it is our job, and we have to do what we're doing. It's business. It's not personal. And sometimes you got to remind people of this. Hey, we got a job to do. We got to get this done. And if there's discipline involved, which discipline is about changing a behavior, right? It's business. You got to do what you got to do. It comes down the line. It's not personal. I may really like you. I may have to, I pull Mark aside. Mark, what the heck happened with that stretch? Or the deal was, hey, Mark, you were late again. What occurred?
It's your fault. You did this to me.
We're gonna role play this one. All right, no problem.
But this is the thing that I think claps us, John, is what you're talking about right now, is that it is business, but most managers in a private sector job don't share the same space as their subordinates. They go home at the end of the day. They don't work directly with each other.
Don't eat with them.
Yeah, whereas a chief or a company officer, right? I could discipline Nick on his shit stretch, and then the tones drop, but guess who's his backup? it's me again. And he's pissed at me. He's like, fuck you, Cap. We're going to mess you. You want to see a messed up stretch, or,
Hey, hold on. We're gonna delay this one a little bit. Let's see how
yeah,
warm it gets.
and it's
And that's never a good thing.
it's such a weird dynamic, I think. I've said for years, the training we give to develop people into the managerial roles that we call leadership because it sounds sexy, all they prepare you for is some tweaked out meth head that's showing up to work and somebody finally noticed, right? I don't know about you guys, but I haven't heard of that many guys showing up, a case of Keystones in the bag before they get to work trying to drive the fire truck, and you call the battalion chief and go on with your day. I don't think it happens. So the real problems are when you have to correct somebody on the small parts of their job, and it gets turned personal, and somehow you are the one that are now being attacked. Well, you know what, Cap, you didn't do this right. Like, it's like arguing with your kids these days, and we just, discipline is more than paperwork. It's like Nick said, discipline is doing the things you have to do, and we just, to me, it's culturally, it's such a hodgepodge right now of what's in fashion and what's convenient and what it sounds like on paper versus what really occurs in the station. And quite honestly, if you look at most fire departments, until the public gets involved, I don't think we give a shit.
And I think you're right. I just had what I was going to say. It just flew right out. It's definitely difficult we set ourselves up for failure. We invest a ton into the firefighter for training. I don't think we put enough training into the admin aspect of it, or the human relations, the HR aspect of it. Because you're right. All right, so they prep you for the guy coming in with a ton of Keystones that he threw back just before. But what about the guy that comes in that, they're having a hard time at home and his brain's out of it, and he's got that stare, and he's there physically, but mentally he's not, and that's not okay. So when you got to become a counselor at that time, there's a lot of stuff in the fire service. I said, I really don't think we prepare our lower management, even some of our middle management, for handling situations, learning how to de-escalate and stuff like that. So, and that's where it goes. That's where it goes. You got to go and get your own training. For me, I look at my personal for tactically and strategically. High rise is my weakness. What did I do? I went to the HROC. I sat and I took the command side of the training on that, because I want to get better. We have to recognize what our weaknesses are and try and do that. Not to throw out other information, but there, legal concepts in the fire service. There's some really good information out there, and I'm trying to look for his book on my wall right now. Legal considerations. I can see it right there, but you've got to learn this stuff. And if you're not doing it, yeah, it's Kurt Verone. Thank you. If you're not doing it every day, if you're not that admin guy doing it every day, it's tough to make sure you dot your I's, you cross your T's, and you don't cause something to get worse by either saying or doing something wrong. So taking classes and reading books, it's important as you step up. And again, and I think you might have seen it, Mark and Nick, as you step up from lieutenant to captain to battalion, your circle of friends gets smaller and smaller and shrinks, because it's just what you're about. People talk about buddy and boss stuff. It's tough. There's a tough separation there, because sometimes you're going to have to come down on somebody. And again, it's business. It's not personal, but people sometimes take it personally. And from the other side, it's tough sometimes to discipline people. Having those tough conversations, it's a tough conversation.
And you don't know till you've done it. So, all right, Nick, we got about 15 minutes left. We try to keep it to about an hour and a half before people, get angry. And we've got these anxious people wondering what kind of coal we're going to put in their stocking. So, so as we wrap it up, man, I want to give you a little chance to kind of talk about North Florida Fire Expo for a little bit. I know we touched on it in the beginning. I think everybody understands what a fire conference is and probably what you're bringing in there. If not, they can, go to the Facebook page and see the roster. I might be on it anyway. But so two things I want you to touch on about the conference that I'm interested in, and that I think people would find interesting that maybe don't think about. First of all, what do you see culturally having interacted with attendees from all over the place as far as the big fire service? And then after that, tell us some behind the scenes stuff that people don't understand about what actually goes into putting on one of these and making it successful. Because everybody thinks the instructors drink beer at night and have a great time. What they don't see is the guys welding props at 2 a.m. So,
Yeah. Globally, I mean, well, nationally in the fire service, there's a lot of good stuff. There's pros and cons, man. And I think culturally there's been a big push to get back to our roots as a fire service, which is encouraging. It's encouraging to see guys taking their own time and money and investing in their skill sets and their knowledge and going and seeking out, training and knowledge. Like I said, I mean, technology has really brought the fire service together in a lot of ways, and allowed people to have access to stuff that they didn't have even a decade ago. So I think that's a really positive thing. I think the push to get back to the blue collar basics is encouraging. I will say this, that one of the things I see as a potential pitfall for some of the conference stuff is we got to be careful not to allow, is all the good stuff that comes out of all this, the conferences and the training and stuff like that. And this is something that, I've kind of likened to the groupie, cultic mindsets, and I'm going to throw this out there. I know this may, hey, we've all been there, but I know that this is something that is been on my mind the last few months, and that is like we got to make sure that we remember what our overall mission. If our overall mission is to get better training, to improve the fire service and leave it better than we found it, right? Then we got to make sure that we're not throwing rocks at other groups just because maybe they're not our stripe or they're not running in our circle. And I think
say it again, dude. Say it again, because you're not a celebrity, you're a freaking instructor.
Yeah, dude. I'm telling you, man. Like at the end of the day, like we all put our pants on the same damn way. And we got to remember, if we're trying to push to get back to the blue collar basics, keep it blue collar basics, man. Like, I'm not saying not to be professional, I'm not saying not to be educated, but at the same time, be accessible, man. You're not a rock star, you're not a celebrity, you're not, you're a fireman that's just sharing passion, and keep it at that, man. There shouldn't be, in my opinion, there shouldn't be, this search group over here hates this search group because they're not one of us, so screw those guys, or this engine group or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And I just don't like to see that kind of stuff, man. I think that that's something that can potentially kind of, one of those things where it can kind of, be counterproductive and actually turn us into, against each other, instead of fighting the battle to make the fire service better and to make others, improve their skill sets so they can serve the community better. If we start fighting each other and picking battles with each other, then, and that's hard sometimes. Like I said, man, you got people you're loyal to, you got people that you naturally gravitate to and like and whatnot. But like I said, man, we just got to make sure that we remember the big picture and we stay loyal to the core concepts of the brotherhood and the fire service, and understand that, if somebody else is trying to make a difference and trying to do it for the right reasons, even if you don't agree with them, leave them alone, man. Like, so what? So we're not all going to agree on everything. It's not it's not any of my business. Like, if they want to, I mean, unless they're just personally attacking your family or something, or causing hardship on you, like, what does it matter if somebody 16 states away is teaching something that, there's nothing new under the sun. Like, oh, that guy, he's trying to teach search and he can't do it as good as we do it.
Yeah, his wife doesn't even love him, so
he does. Yeah. I don't know, man. I just think that that's a potential pitfall culturally, nationally, for the fire service.
Wait,
you got to be careful.
You stole my idea? Hold on, I might have heard that phrase someplace.
I tried to patent it too, so it's cool. Never mind.
So anyway, behind the scenes at the fire conference, what's it look like?
All right, I had to poke that bear, so I'm gonna walk away from that one now. All right, so I had no idea 3 years ago when we started this thing. I had no idea what the hell we were getting into at all. I'll be completely honest. I'd been to a bunch of conferences, but I had no idea the amount of work that went in behind the scenes into pulling something like this off. And honestly, the first year we did it going in, we didn't really know what to expect. We didn't know if we would do another one. Our intent for the first year was to raise money for one of our members who had cancer, and that's what we did. And the feedback from that first year was excellent. The feedback was excellent. The fellowship was great. And from that, it was like, hey, are you guys going to do another one? And it kind of just blossomed from there, and it's kind of taken a life of its own now. But at the end of the day, like, people always see the stuff on the outside, right? They see the classes and the cool stuff and the socials and the raffles and all the cool stuff that they get to do, which is awesome. And that's one thing I think that, we've really tried to develop is the conference experience. It's not just the training, it's all the stuff that goes with it, because we want people to come in from day one and feel like they're at home with a bunch of brothers and sisters the entire event. I want people to have a good time. Listen, I tell people, like, look, bring your families, absolutely involve your families, bring them to the beach, let them go hang out at the pool. Listen, if you want to take classes 2 of the 3 days and spend one day doing family stuff or just hanging out and relaxing, do it. Come enjoy the fire service, come enjoy the brotherhood. And, but realize this, I can tell you from the last couple of years, I've learned so much of the kind of stuff that goes, the legwork, and this is what we found out last year, like, starting to build props way earlier than what we did last year. And people don't realize, like, late into the night, sometimes, like the night before classes, like, props are getting built, stuff's getting, the lumber's getting delivered and supplies are getting dropped off. And yes, there's fellowship and there's some beers here and there, but a lot of legwork goes into logistically moving stuff and getting people where they need to be, getting them the resources they need, and make sure everybody gets, to experience the class and not get hurt, and, gets to hopefully go home with all their fingers and toes still attached, and there's a lot that I didn't realize when we started this that went into it. And I can tell you that it's worth it. When it all comes together and you get to see it all, finally, you kind of let you take a sigh and just kind of breathe, and you get to see it all kind of come to fruition. But I'm going to tell you, like, it's like that duck, man, like trying to remain calm on the surface, but on the surface, you are paddling like hell, because, like, everything's got to fall, into position for it to work. And that just goes to show, man. I mean, the amount of dedication from, even a lot of the instructors, man. Like last year, we had instructors that were helping with cleanup, helping with prop building, helping with running errands when they weren't teaching, and that to me is like, what is amazing to me is to see so many people selflessly working for a common goal, which is to make the fire service better. And so my hat's off to anybody that runs an event like this, or anybody that gets involved, with our event. Like, it is a tremendous team effort. I know I may be the guy running my mouth sometimes a lot. But I mean, the bottom line is, like, it is a team effort that takes a tremendous amount of dedication and work. And the people that put in the work behind the scenes don't get enough credit, because it is tireless. I mean, I think we averaged like 2 hours of sleep a night for like the whole week of the expo last year. I had one day where my phone actually, I'm not even kidding you, which I had like 162 calls in one day, like 24-hour period. And I learned a lot from that too, like trying to spread out some delegation and stuff. But that's what goes into an event like that. And this is just a smaller conference, man. This is not even, I can't imagine what goes into the FEIC's Firehouse Expos and events that are much larger. But I can tell you that if this is just a microcosm of what that is, I can't even imagine, because it's all hands on deck for weeks leading up to the event, and during the event, it is literally nonstop for the crew that's working the event. So it's hard work. We don't really, I mean, any money we do make goes right back into the event. It's one of the things we've been trying to do is just reinvest it into training. I think that when you get that many passionate people together in one place, though, good things are going to happen. And that's what we hope for this year, man. We've grown it from little old, I think we were just right at like 60 people the first year to, 155 students last year. And we're hoping for, closer to 250 this year. So it's kind of just growing, and we're excited to see where it goes, man. I think it's I think we have instructors from 17 different states coming in, like I want to say 16 or 17 lectures, 16 hot classes, multiple sites. We've added a few sites, so it takes a lot of legwork to run that stuff. But we couldn't be any more excited about the future, man, because like I said, we're doing stuff that guys are hungry for. And that's what's cool, is to watch all these hungry firefighters come from all over and just have a blast, man. They go out and, do fireman stuff, and then they get to enjoy themselves in the evening and fellowship with people they might not meet otherwise. And that's what it's, to me, seeing it all come together is payment. That's what makes it worth it, is to see everything come together, everybody have a good time, and to walk away thinking, man, that was awesome. That was fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah, man. So something I'll tag on to that as somebody who's been to a lot of these, and now I'm fortunate enough to know enough of these instructors where I'm kind of like, I'm the groupie, right? I'm with the band, like I'm a student, but I'm hanging out with the guys because it's all my friends teaching. One, understand, like, I have completely changed my attitude about when people say like, hey, we need you here at like 7:30 so we can get going. You're like, oh fuck, it's 7:30. I've been out drinking. The instructors are there. 2 hours is probably early, right? 2 to 3 hours early to set up everything for you. You went through one evolution. They went through all the evolutions with all the students. And then when you were so tired and dehydrated and hungry and left, they had to pick it all up because they're not there tomorrow. So I want to reinforce how much these instructors put in. Also, the fact that what you also don't see is a lot of these guys mingle. So they're doing reps in addition to their own training with the other guys, because they're like, hey, Nick, that's freaking cool. Let me get a couple of forces on that door with that method. So they've already got a 12-hour day, huh?
That, or they're up until the middle of the night changing their program around just to modify it and make it personal.
It's crazy,
man.
man.
There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but again, it's all for the love and the passion of the job, and to make the best experience for these students possible.
Yeah, appreciate what these instructors, like, because a lot of people, I've heard this all over the place. Oh, well, they're paid to be here. Well, if they are paid, which a lot of, here's a newsflash, everybody. There's a lot of teaching gigs that are like, hey, we're buddies, come help me out, and I can put you and your friend up in a hotel room for the night, kind of thing. You're gonna have to share. So you can put that myth out the window. If money changes hands, it's not enough to go around, and it barely covers your travel, your lodging, and your food for the week. So you can put that myth that people, while there are probably people getting rich off the fire service, the bulk of people at these smaller conferences are not them. Yeah. And then the other thing I will tell you that I have learned in my own experience is that if you have the transportation and the time at the end of the class, if you do stay to help clean up, A, you'll get more reps, and B, you will get that one-on-one, one-on-two personal stuff with these instructors. That's how you become friends with these guys. That's how you get the real, like, the stuff they don't have time for in the rest of the class. So, like I said, I get people have planes to catch and shuttles to catch, and they've got to work the next day, or they've got to, meet their buddies and their wives for dinner. That's fine. But if you do have the luxury of that time, I would highly encourage you to say, hey, do you mind if I help you take up? Do you mind if we go over this skill one more time? And you'll be really surprised how much these guys will give you. That's all I got for that. Nick, I got one question in the chat from earlier. I told Brandon I would get to for you towards the end here. So he's getting ready to take his lieutenant's test at the first of the year, and he's wondering if you have any advice you could give him being on a small growing department running for lieutenant.
Advice, I would say, know your job and be good at it, but also I would also say to invest some time into, if you get that promotion, come in and just sit back for a couple months and just don't try to make any major sweeping changes and put your rubber stamp on everything right off the bat. And I think just temper your expectations, I think, is what the biggest thing is. Understand that, it may be a little lonely sometimes in that position. But you got to be ready for that, and just realize, like, you're there to do the job. You're there to take care of the citizens. You're there to take care of your people, make sure they're trained, make sure and sometimes, that's not going to make you the most popular guy on the crew. And so I think, John, you alluded to it earlier, the lack of the training on the personnel side of stuff, right? And the lack of focus on realizing, like, most of your struggles as an officer don't come from the job itself. Like, specifically, it comes from interacting with people and personal struggles, right? It comes from that side of the stuff. So, take some time, man. Read stuff that is going to challenge you in your approach to the job and in your approach to people, and read stuff that keeps you focused on the mission. Because I think if you keep yourself focused on the mission, everything else will be peripheral. Even if, like I said, even if you're not everybody's best buddy and drink with them, just do the job, do it well, and then make sure your guys have the tools they need to succeed. Don't go out of your way to try to, screw with people, but as far as prepping goes, I mean, I wish that I would have spent more time prepping for that side of the job. You know what I'm saying? As far as testing, anybody can learn, books and take tests, but that doesn't automatically translate to being successful in that officer position. So consistency, discipline, like I said, I think it's Pablo always says, motivation will get you to the start line, but discipline gets you to the finish line. And that's what this is, man. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have people that love you, people that hate you, but just stay the course. Be consistent, be you. Don't compromise your standards for anybody, but understand that you're going to have to be the guy that just you're going to have to motivate yourself some days, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because there's going to be days where other people are simply just not going to be the most motivational source for you. So find other people that are in similar positions. Seek out people that are in those officer positions that you respect, pick their brain, and just love the job. I think, at the end of the day, if you love the job and you are passionate about being better, then a lot of that stuff, like I said, it'll come and go. You'll have ups and downs in your career, but you're going to be a lot better off in the long run if you stay true to your values and true to the job. And that's what I would say. It's been a few years now in the seat and seen a lot of ups and downs and things come and go. But I mean, ultimately you have to be able to go to sleep at night with yourself and with your decisions and who you are. And if you sit there and try to, change and morph to be someone you're not, then ultimately that's going to be your downfall. Right. So just, don't get caught up in trying to come in and, force the new standard right away. Like, kind of ease into it, but at the same time have a standard, and whatever those standards are, you hold yourself to them, you do it, and then that's it. You're going to have times you get discouraged and you got to get reset. Everybody gets there, man, where you kind of waver a little bit and start to kind of feel a little uneasy, but you just got to pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and get back at it. I mean, and that's what gets people, I think, long term, the people that really matter and that truly care are going to see that and respect that. And the ones that don't worry about them. Don't worry about the people that, don't like you or don't like your methods or whatever. You're not going to please everybody in a leadership position. That's a fact. And I spoke to several people, that I highly respect over the years, and they've all said, and it's funny, the stories are the same. It's like, you just got to be true, be consistent, be disciplined, be true to yourself, and don't lower your standards for anybody else. But at the same time, understand that, sometimes that road is lonely. Sometimes it's you standing there in the gap by yourself, but the people that are meant to be there, the people that matter are going to be there. And like I said, the ones that don't, that want to throw rocks, like, you're going to have that your entire career. So get used to it. If you want to be in that position, you're going to have those lonely moments, but as long as you prepare yourself, and that's what I guess what I'm saying is, like, prepare yourself for that side of it. Prepare yourself for the mental psyche part of the job. Prepare yourself for the personal side of the job, because, putting fire out and doing, extrications and medical stuff and all that stuff is very, very important. And we spend a bulk of our time preparing for that, but very little time is spent preparing us for the 90% of the time in the firehouse with people and their problems. So, that's stuff I wish that someone would have pulled me aside a long time ago and kind of, told me that I've had to learn the hard way as I've kind of gone. So that's all I got on that, man. But good luck on the promotion, brother. I think, stick with it, and study hard. Hopefully you do well.
Great advice, man. John, you got anything to add?
No, I was just typing away in the chat group. And again, consistency is key. Be approachable, and you permit what you promote, or you promote what you permit. It goes back both ways. If you let stuff slide, you got to let stuff slide all the time, but you got to be able to eat that if you get called on it, right? So if it's not cool with you, stop it early and tell them why. And again, Nick, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys.
It's gonna be fun,
March.
bro.
It's starting to get cold up here, so I want to come down there nice and warm on the beach, hang out down there for a little bit. And again,
Yeah.
I don't think I saw the beach when I was down there last time. We were running around, jumping from car to car, building props and everything else. But
Yeah.
you know what? It's a blast because you're right. You get to hang out with the other firemen you don't get to see all the time, and have conversations or learn something new, a different strategy, a different tactic, different tip or trick. And I look forward to coming down and hanging out with you and seeing my partner with that stash. Maybe we'll have the curly Q.
I don't know if it'll be there by then. Ashley might cut it off in my sleep. We'll have to find out. So,
Well, if she shaves one side of it, you got to shave the other then, right?
yeah, it's true. I might start a new trend, but all right. So I think we made these guys wait long enough, and so you've actually been
Roll it.
fortunate hanging out for this long because the crowd has dwindled down to 7. So you got a 1 in 7 chance here. So I'm gonna ask all of you to unmute so I know you're actually here and still alive. Oh, good lord! All
Caleb's
right.
got a house full.
Yeah, Caleb's got a busy.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share the screen. I've got Chris, Caleb, Tim, Justin, Mark. Okay, maybe that was a bad idea. I'm going to meet y'all again. I know you're here now. Everybody's alive. I'm not going to ask you to turn on your cameras because I don't know what kind of weird stuff you got going on at your houses. So, let's see. Mute. All right, I don't know. I'm muting everybody. Okay, so anyway, tell me if is my screen shared? Where'd it go?
You're showing Zoom.
All right, hold on. That's the wrong one, of course. Where'd it go? I lost it on my end. That's why. Let's see. There it is. All right. How about that? Is my wheel of names up?
Yep.
All right. So I've got everybody that's here. I put you all on this wheel. We're going to do it live, so there can be no collusion or insinuation that somebody was picked before the process. So here we go. This is going to be for our Christmas present, and I haven't even told you what it is, so I'm going to tell you what it is now. Nick has been gracious enough to grant us a free conference pass to the North Florida Fire Expo in March. And Unlock Your Culture hosts have decided that we are going to chip in and we are going to make sure that your lodging is paid for. So all you got to do is get there and get home. That's our Christmas present to our viewers. So here we go. We're going to spin the wheel and see who gets a free pass. My only caveat here is that if for some reason you can't attend, you got to gift it to somebody else that can attend. And just let us know who it is so we can get their accommodations taken care of. So here we go. Caleb Johnson going to the North Florida Fire Expo.
Oh my gosh.
What do you think, brother? Good Christmas present?
Dude, heck yeah, man.
All right. Well, I
What's
will
Caleb,
I
where are
will
you from?
get you.
I'm from Idaho.
Nice.
Idaho. Nice.
It's getting cold.
Idaho.
I can
So-
imagine.
So is getting to the Florida Panhandle a relief? Do you think in March from the Idaho stuff?
Just better not tell my wife.
Well,
Bring
first
her.
of all, bring her.
Bring her
It's a great conference for families.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, she can have
You
some
got
time on the
little
beach
ones?
away from you.
Yeah, I got a little boy, so
Bring him too. We'll make
Yeah,
him a
bring him.
fireman.
heck yeah.
That's cool.
All right. Well,
Have
I
you
will
been
get with
to
you
North
afterwards,
Florida
bro.
Fire Expo before or no?
No, I've been to Tampa once, but that's about it.
Cool.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Well,
Congratulations.
Congrats,
If you
bro.
can
Thank
get
you.
there, man, we've got everything else covered. So if you can get
Heck
there,
yeah, I'll bust my butt for sure to get there.
all right. Well, I will get your info after we wind down here, and we can communicate and get it figured out. And if it doesn't work out, we'll get it to somebody who can. But I have faith we will get you there one way or the other, bro. I want you to go.
We're
We're gonna have to
I
do
want you to
a
experience
photo op when he gets down there.
it. Yeah, we
Yeah,
need
definitely.
proof of life.
You say proof
All
of
right.
life? What?
Life.
Life.
Jeez.
Life.
Life.
Get your mind out of the gutter. We believe Caleb is married. We don't need proof of a wife, okay? All right. Any closing commentary from our goofy butts before we end this thing?
All good. Everybody have a great holiday season. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Stay safe, and we'll definitely see you next year.
Yeah,
Nick,
thanks for
closing thoughts?
yeah, man. Thanks for having me on the show, guys. Merry Christmas to you guys. I think it's always fun when you get to get with the like-minded brothers and talk shop for a little bit. So thanks again for having me.
Right on, bro. I
Anytime.
appreciate you being here. Appreciate
Thank
your
you so
time.
much for
Appreciate
coming.
our guests hanging out here and being able to give back a little bit. I think January's guests we got 2 possibles. We're trying to work out some scheduling. So while last month I said we were more professional when have it in advance, we've digressed this month. And so we will get that out as soon as possible. We'll definitely have a January episode. So thank you again to everybody that joined. Congratulations again to Caleb. He's got his free
Thanks.
pass to the North Florida Fire Expo. He gets to hang out with Nick and talk fire stuff. So everybody, again, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you go by, and we'll see you in January.